Hey, this is Jason Kleberg from the Force 5 podcast, a show that forces a guest to come up with a movie-themed top 5 list topic, and then we reveal our picks on air. Top 5 heist films, top 5 tearjerkers, top 5 movie dogs. Every show you'll be asking yourself, what would be on my list? Guests include directors, screenwriters, actors, podcasters, musicians, authors, and even a professional wrestler. Subscribe to the Force 5 podcast, and you won't just be a listener, you'll be a list nerd. The Force 5 podcast, available wherever you're listening now.
Do you love movies? So do I. What's up, y'all? It's KB, and I love movies, inviting you to listen to The Conversation, a film podcast where passion meets perspective and opinion. From the old school to the new, I invite a guest on to discuss the movies that thrill us, challenge us, break our hearts, or even blow our minds. There's always new episodes dropping wherever you get your podcasts. So join the conversation. We don't just watch movies. We love talking about them too. The Conversation with KB Loves Movies, a part of Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Now it's the time on Sprocket's gonna be done.
Welcome to Wake Up Heavy, the world's greatest horror movie podcast.
Hello and welcome to Wake Up Heavy. This is Mark Bagley, your host, and this is the second and probably final Notes from a Home episode during our stay-at-home order, shelter-in-place order, whichever it technically is here today. That has lifted. This is Tuesday, May 26th, and so in celebration of that, I shaved off my pandemic beard, corona beard, isolation beard. The other day, my wife reminded me that Tuesday we were lifting the shelter in place. Plan was to kind of keep it during that time. Although I sort of liked it and had gotten used to it, I mess with it constantly. So if you want to look at that video, it is on Instagram. So not a whole heck of a lot of new stuff going on since I last spoke with you. Been watching movies, working from home, and I will continue working from home until I'm sure most people have gone back to their jobs. I am in no rush to go back to a crowded office with people, patients, clients coming in, although I don't interact with them. The people I work with do, and we have a very crowded waiting room at times, and that absolutely does not appeal to me in any way whatsoever. School is pretty much officially over for my daughter this year, so we don't really have a place for her to go this summer anyway, since she has aged out of daycare. We'll probably be spending a lot more time together. I am in my new recording setup, so we'll see how the sound goes on this. I am sitting on the little love seat in the spare room that I use to record regularly, but I am not laying on the floor. It will be getting hot today, but it isn't yet, so I do still have clothes on. I don't want to spend too much time on this nonsense, since I do have about a 20-minute discussion with my daughter on some movies, or a movie that we briefly touched on last time, and then another rewatch of ours, and then a first watch for her of a classic horror movie that had a significant anniversary this past weekend. I forgot to mention on the last one when I did my kind of viewing notes, watch list recommendations, I had recorded a version, deleted it like I like to do, and totally forgot to mention God Monster of Indian Flats, which is currently streaming on Tubi thanks to AGFA, the American Genre Film Archive. And it is a funky little regional horror film from the early 70s by the look of it, and features one of the chunkiest, craziest monsters you will encounter in a horror film. And I think the region in this case was the Reno, Nevada area. But it actually had a plot and a storyline involving corruption and political stuff, and I enjoyed the heck out of it. And then I was kind of clued in. I think the day I posted that last episode, I had mentioned about feeling kind of weird and saw, I think it was Mike White from the projection booth had posted on Facebook an article about allostasis. So check that out. It's very interesting to note that even though we are hunkered down at home, this is far outside of most people's normal routine. And so that reaction, that allostasis occurs. And I can, at reading that, I could see those signs in myself. Okay, so movies to catch if you can. And I'm sure most of these are streaming because that's how I usually watch movies. And that includes cable. So if I remember where I saw these, I'll let you know. Still doing kind of some favorites from preteen, teen years. One of my favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movies that I have been meaning to watch for a while finally came back on one of our cable channels, Commando. It seems I'm in the minority there in liking that one a lot. But hey, I'm used to that. Rewatched Death Wish for the God knows how many times. Nighthawks, Sylvester Stallone, Lando Calrissian, Billy D. Williams, and Rutger Hauer. Great, pretty violent, very early 80s, but feels more like a 70s movie. It is streaming on Netflix currently. And I got into two pretty heavy movies that I have avoided for a while because, for one thing, who wants to be depressed right now? But I said, what the heck? I watched The Deer Hunter and The Elephant Man. And I've spoken about The Elephant Man on the Eraserhead episode, so I won't get too into that. Yeah, man, that movie kills me. Just absolutely kills me. And it's nice to know that a lot of that really heavy stuff didn't actually happen to Joseph Merrick during his real life. It's kind of dramatized in Dr. Treves' original biography of the Elephant Man. Took some liberties there. It's nice to know while I'm watching it that he didn't lead that horrible of a life. A movie that's from that time, but I don't think I've watched straight through in one sitting before, and I can't recommend enough, is The Taking of Pelham 123. Well, it's the taking of the Pelham 123. And then another movie that I've caught mostly bits and pieces of, and this was sort of due to watching The Deer Hunter, I watched Christopher Walken in The Dogs of War, and that is a kick-ass film that you should check out. Horror.
That doesn't sound right.
Let's try that again. Some horror rewatches included the original Maniac, or the 1980 Maniac, I should say. There's films prior to that are called Maniac. I watched Ghost House, which is one of those La Casa films from Italy, although it was filmed, I think, in Massachusetts. And this is not a rewatch, but because I watched that one, I watched The Horror Show, which Mike and I discussed a little bit on the Evil Dead episode, another entry in the La Casa franchise. Ooh, I slipped into gringo talk there for a second. I started to rewatch Rabid because I watched the remake earlier that day. It's on Showtime. The remake is on Showtime right now. I had to stop, not even halfway through, I think, because I had been feeling strange all day, having stomach issues, and ended up vomiting that night. TMI, I know, but if you've listened to any of my shows, you know that I can't stand I'd rather be sick with the flu for 3 weeks, and maybe that's a stupid thing to say right now. Rather be sick with the flu for 3 weeks than vomit for 5 minutes, to be honest with you. So that was horrifying. Didn't finish my rewatch of Rabid, but I will in preparation for an upcoming episode on Shivers. And then I watched a bunch of Stephen King films because they are comfort films. Those included The Dead Zone, The Shining, and Misery. They're all streaming. Well, no, The Shining is my Blu-ray that I got. The other two are streaming somewhere, so check them out. Some things that are new to Shudder that I have been wanting to watch for a while have finally shown up streaming. One is a giallo called The Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward. And then this one that I had read about a while back called Satan's Slave, and it is kind of an ersatz remake of Phantasm, an Indonesian remake of Phantasm. And you can see it strays pretty liberally from that story, but you get to see some little touches here and there. The main character, the teen boy, rides a motorcycle. There's no tall man or anything like that, but it gets into a little bit more of like not a exorcist, but kind of a possession film, but very interesting. And there is a remake of that's also streaming on Shudder. I think it's a Shudder original, actually, called Satan's Slaves. But Satan's Slave is 1980, early 1980s. And again, there are a couple of other movies with that title, so look for the one that's the Indonesian film. Other first-time watches are Graydon Clark's Without Warning, that features Jack Palance and, of course, I'm going to forget the other guy, but they were both in Jack Palance and Martin Landau, who had both been in Alone in the Dark around very close to the same time. I watched a weird movie. I don't really know how to describe this. It's a new movie called I See You, and it is streaming on Amazon Prime with Helen Hunt. It's sort of like a Lifetime movie, but amped up a little bit. It had some interesting twists that I didn't fully catch, and an interesting plot structure. So check it out. I was pleasantly surprised by that one. Another classic that I had not seen before is The Dorm That Dripped Blood, one of Daphne Zuniga's early roles. Fairly middling, but had some pretty gruesome special effects. Cheap, but chunky and bloody and worth a look. I think that was on YouTube. Then I ended up having an accidental New Zealand double feature with a film that I think I found out about because of an email from AGFA called Vigil. It is streaming on Amazon Prime. Very interesting. It's not horror. It feels post-apocalyptic, but I think that's just because of this very isolated farm that these people live on. Coming of age story for a young, 12 or 13-year-old New Zealand girl. And then Sleeping Dogs, which is a Sam Neill film, sort of would make a great double feature with The Dogs of War. Not just because they both have dogs in the title, I'm just realizing, but they kind of deal with mercenaries and political upheaval. And then my two big recommendations, first-time watches from this period since the last time I did an episode, are the 1982 German film The Fan, or Der Fan, and that lovely music you heard at the beginning of the episode is from that.
Now the time on sprockets when we dance.
This is not available to stream anywhere in the States and probably won't ever be because it's a tad controversial. There is nudity of an underage actress in that. A very interesting, obsessive fan film, and I can't for the life of me think of where I know the movie from. I wouldn't have seen it as a kid. The poster image or the video box image is pretty iconic, so it could just be from that and probably from reading about it and all those film books I have. But I finally broke down and just bought the Blu-ray, and which is not something I normally do sight unseen for a film, but I ended up really enjoying it. The ending is absolutely bananas. I highly recommend seeing it if you can. I don't necessarily recommend going out and buying it sight unseen, mainly because of the controversy. But I'm not going to argue whether it's exploitative or not. But don't get it confused with the movie The Fan with Michael Biehn from a year earlier, which is actually on my list to watch, or The Fan with Robert De Niro that came out in the 90s. All deal with the same basic idea of an obsessive fan in one way or another. And then a new film that I had been really anxious to see after hearing a lot about it after it played festivals was The Lodge. And this is by the directing team that gave us Goodnight Mommy, about 4 or 5 years ago, maybe even longer. That, I don't know if that ended up on one of my favorite modern horror lists or not, but it probably would now. I rewatched it a while back and enjoyed it a lot more. The Lodge is, it popped up on Hulu and I had been wanting to watch it. And of course, when that happens, and a lot of people, it gets reintroduced on Twitter. And so a lot of people were talking about it. It's a very divisive film. It's pretty rough. I don't want to say mean-spirited, but because that's more how some of the characters are. It does deal with mental health issues. There is a religious doomsday cult kind of subtext throughout. I found it fascinating throughout, and it is anxiety-inducing and can be stressful for some, but I didn't find it anywhere as rough of a watch as something like The Nightingale, which I also really enjoyed, but it is not nearly as disturbing as that. So check that out. The Lodge is on Hulu. And just last night, I caught another festival darling I had been hearing about for much of last year with Elijah Wood from Aunt Timpson called Come to Daddy. And I was laughing. It's not really horror. I don't want to describe it in any way whatsoever. You should go in blind. It's pretty violent. Understand that, at least. One of my favorite movies from last year that I'm just now seeing, but best of 2019 for sure. And it is streaming on Prime as of yesterday. So check that one out for sure. And then movies with the family, and that will kind of move us into my discussion with my daughter. We rewatched The Princess Bride because it showed up on Disney Plus a couple weeks ago, I guess. And we couldn't remember if my daughter had watched it all the way through, but I think she has. And then she and I rewatched so that we could talk about it, Time Bandits, which we discussed ever so briefly last time, but we get into it a little bit more here. And another favorite from that same year, 1981, another favorite of mine that rewatched a little while back and then rewatched, which you'll hear all about, is Dragon Slayer. I may come back at the end here after the discussion and chat for a little bit longer, but that's about what I wanted to cover on this episode. Hopefully, with things opening up here, my wife will probably be going into her office next month, so that may kind of open up my ability to do regular episodes. Cinder, why didn't I rent this episode? I've got my Mickey Rourke stuff to get to, and then I'm sure Mike and I will be discussing Shivers at some point, probably next month. But for now, here is... Oh, and one thing about The Fan, the girl is obsessed with a musician called R, I believe, and he was a real German synth pop music star, not like Kraftwerk big, but I guess fairly successful. And some of the complaints that I saw in reviews was how awful the music was, and I kind of really loved it. So I'm going to play a little bit of that throughout the episode, but in between things here, I'll come in with that. And I found it repetitive, yes, but kind of hypnotic and wonderful in a way. I am not a synth pop fan. I don't even know if I'm using the right term for what this is. It kind of wormed its way into my brain. I'm going to share that, and then I'll play out the end of the episode with one of the full songs from it. And it's fairly long, so don't feel obligated to listen all the way through. I kind of love this. This is actually a soundtrack that I could see myself buying. Here's some Rheingold from The Fan. And then after that, you'll hear my discussion with Cleo.
Now the time on sprockets when we dance.
am back once again with my daughter, Cleo. Hi, Cleo. Thanks for being here.
Hello.
And we're going to talk about some of the movies that we actually rewatched during our stay at home. The first one is something that we watched right before our stay at home order came through here in California or in Fresno. And I had every intention of kind of doing a little video review with you on this, but that just hasn't happened. Maybe it'll happen with a different movie now that Mom got that phone holder for her tripod. But we watched Time Bandits. What's the term that you keep using to describe it?
A fever dream.
Yes, which I think is actually perfect for this movie because it has that weird feeling throughout that I like still and liked a whole lot back then. And I saw this movie when it came out in the theater. I think my initial reason for wanting to see it is because I knew that George Harrison was involved in some way, and I was a huge Beatles fan at the time. He did some of the music, and his film production company actually produced it. It was very much right up my alley and one of my favorite movies when I was a kid. And I saw it when I was about almost exactly your age at 12 and a half-ish, a little bit more than 12 and a half. This came out in November of 1981, and I just remember absolutely loving it. So what was your initial impression the first time we watched it?
As I said, a fever dream, but it also was just funny, and there's just weird parts of it.
Well, one of the reasons we watched it is because of our attempt to watch Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Well, not really our attempt to, but as I mentioned, I think on the last episode here when we talked, we had started to watch that and you had to go to dance, and so we stopped it, and we ended up watching that after watching Time Bandits, but I had it in my head to watch this one with you because, for one reason, I really liked it, and the other reason was a lot of the same people from Monty Python were involved in this. So Terry Gilliam, the director, he plays the guy that clumps the coconuts together in Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And directed part of that as well. We recognized John Cleese and Michael Palin, and John Cleese played Robin Hood in Time Bandits, a wonderful Robin Hood, and then he was the French guy in the castle that kept hurling all those insults at them when they were trying to get help.
I fart in your general direction.
And animals.
Yes, and animals. And then Michael Palin plays, let me see if I can remember his name, Vincent is his name. So Vincent and Pansy, one of our favorite parts of Time Bandits. They show up a couple different times.
In the medieval times, like in the forest and on the Titanic.
Yeah. I wonder if they were supposed to have more scenes throughout the rest of the movie. That would have been kind of great to see them in every little scenario. But Michael Palin is also in Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And just like on their show, they all play multiple characters in that movie. So it's sort of hard to nail down who's who. I can't remember which knight he is in Holy Grail. But so this was a movie that kind of struck me strangely when I was a kid because it's a British film and there were those subtle British differences. And we kind of talked about that when we were watching this. And, you know, like him calling the flashlight a torch. And I just wasn't familiar with that stuff when I was a kid. You probably have more familiarity with it in this day and age than I did back then. But the one weird thing that I had never seen before, and this isn't particularly British, but the plastic on their furniture always kind of struck me as really weird at the beginning of the movie. Mm-hmm. So that kind of ran through the film and just gave it, along with all the other interesting visuals and the childlike imagination of it, gave it that surreal touch, which I just absolutely love. What would your synopsis of the movie be?
Well, it's about this kid who, well, his parents aren't really the greatest. All the other caricatures appear in his bedroom, and then they just go on an adventure and take him with them.
Through time and
space.
The characters are Fidget, Strutter, Og, Wally, and Vermin. And they're all little people. I think when we were first looking into this, and I mentioned this on the last episode as well, that I was looking for some movies from my childhood that I really enjoyed that you might enjoy. So we watched trailers for Time Bandits and Legend and Willow. And as I was kind of looking at stuff, I realized that a lot of these guys were in those movies, all three of those movies. So some of them are in, this one and Legend. Some are in this one and Willow. And then, of course, Kenny Baker, who plays Fidget, is the guy that played R2-D2 in the Star Wars films.
Mm-hmm.
They break into his room through a I don't want to say time hole because they're not holes, they're squares.
They're doors.
Doors, right. And do you remember what they say their job was?
Didn't they, create stuff?
They said that they helped the Supreme Being, who was, of course, supposed to be God. They helped him with creation. So he did the big stuff, and they did all the plants and animals, I think is what they say. And they name a couple of strange creatures that they invented that, of course, are not real. So they got sacked, which is another British term, which means fired, and stole the map of the universe that shows where all the time holes and portals are throughout the universe. And they're going to go through history and I guess through fantasy, since it's not really all historical figures that they run into.
Yeah.
And to just basically rob people. So that's kind of what they're doing now. And two people are after them, or two beings are after them. So
the Supreme Being and the Evil Genius.
Evil Genius, yes, exactly. I love those names for both of them. And the Evil Genius is, I discovered while I was doing my little IMDb research, voiced a character on, oh shoot, now I forgot what show I said he voiced.
Amazing World of Gumball.
Yeah, which is just bizarre. So you have some familiarity with him, at least his voice.
Yeah.
But I love his costume. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the alien creature because he has a skull on the back with a tube coming out. And of course, in Alien, you don't see it very well, but underneath that dome of his, there's kind of a skull-like feature in that. I just love how he is trying to be an evil genius, but he's actually kind of an idiot. And I just love how that actor, David Warner, plays it up throughout the whole thing. And I think I told you this while we were watching it. I tried to watch it a couple years ago, and I think I stopped at about the Agamemnon part because I was actually a little bit bored. And as I was looking on IMDb, I realized that this was a longer cut than was originally released in the theaters. And I have a feeling it was maybe some of the dialogue and character stuff that was added back in that sort of makes it drag a little bit. Because once we get to the end with especially the battle scene, I mean, that was just, you and I were both just laughing like crazy for all of that. So what are some of your favorite parts of the film?
Finger lasers from the Evil Genius.
And what does he do when he pulls that back and blasts people?
He blows them up or turns them into things.
And I gotta say, the explosions are pretty epic in this. You get to see the costumes or whatever blow apart in slow motion, and it's great. I see that's the kind of stuff that really hit me as a kid. That finger thing, that when he starts spinning around, all those people come in, all the characters from his room, the Western guy, the cowboys, and the army soldiers, that all represent the toys that Kevin had in his room.
And the poor archers.
So they lasso him, and then he spins them around, and that thing comes out of his head, and it cuts all the ropes, and they go flying off. The archers try to get him, and he turns into what?
What does he turn into?
Remember? And all the arrows stick into it?
He turns into a pincushion.
Yeah, the sewing tomato, I like to call it. That I don't know why it's that. Why every household, at least in the past, had a little sewing tomato pincushion. But yeah, he turns into that and then flings all the arrows back at them. I love the pig mask, which you find horrifying.
Yeah.
I love the part. Like the part when they get kind of to the end of. I don't know if it's not necessarily the end of time, but wherever, and they smash into the invisible barrier.
They just spend like 5 minutes smushing their face on the glass. And it's just like, why are you doing this?
Yeah, no, it's great. And then they finally break through, and there's the massive, wonderful miniature of the evil genius's castle.
Yes.
I really like the section with the ogre and the giant who's got the boat on his head, and they come out. But overall, I really have enjoyed it the few times that we watched it. What did Mom say it reminded her of? Well, I started thinking of Night at the Museum when all the characters from his bedroom were coming in.
Yeah.
Just because they were kind of the same, there was
the Western people.
Western and military
the
guys. Romans, exactly. And then it also kind of reminds me of Princess Bride a little bit.
Yeah.
Just with the oddball characters. And so when we were watching it, I was thinking about the Supreme Being and how kind of very British old man he is, and went back to IMDb, and I was like, oh, wait, we've seen this guy in something else. And I mentioned that he was the old magician in Dragon Slayer. So what did you say we should do?
Watch Dragon Slayer.
Right, which we had watched maybe a year or so ago.
Yeah, I think so.
And again, that was one of my favorites as a kid. I'm not a big fantasy film fan. I never even was really as a kid. And I never played Dungeons and Dragons or anything like that. For some reason, this one really worked for me back then. And it was released the same year. I think it was a summer movie. And I probably went and saw it with Auntie and Nana. And was a little bit surprised since it was a co-production with Disney. I remember being surprised and embarrassed that there was a little bit of nudity in it. So did that bother you?
No.
It's different times now, huh?
Yeah, you can't even see it in the newer versions, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. That cleaned up version we watched, it was, very dark.
Foggy and stuff.
The underwater scene. So I don't know if they messed with it. I don't think it'll ever end up on Disney because it's one of the movies that they've sort of backed away from.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll end up on Disney Plus, I should say. So, but I know that it was a totally different print that we watched this time. The stuff that really stuck out to me now is more how violent and gory it was. So did any of that bother you?
Not really.
Like when they chew her leg off? Yeah, the puppets for the little babies are kind of silly looking. Their eyes are a little bit buggy, but yeah, they're the ones that gnaw off her leg and devour that girl.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, your basic fantasy world with a magician called Ulrich. That's Ralph Richardson. And then his young apprentice, and they're sacrificing virgins to the dragon so that he doesn't demolish them all. And of course, now I can't remember the name of the dragon in the movie.
Yeah, did it even have a name?
Yeah, it has a name, and it's a really cool name, and I should probably check and see what that is real quick, because it's kind of awesome. But the dragon is still considered by many to be one of the best dragon designs in all of movie and television.
It's pretty good. I like it. The babies are scary looking. They don't necessarily look like dragons. They look like little gargoyles. But the big dragon, the adult one, is pretty cool looking. I like the design of it.
Vermithrax Pejorative is his name, and according to IMDb, that roughly translates as the worm of Thrace, which makes things worse. How's that for a dragon name? Should we discuss the movie that we watched the other night? So we don't have to.
We can. I mean, I watched most of it. Mostly all of it, actually.
Did you not watch some of it?
The parts where she was running through the halls trying to get out, I didn't, because the spooky visions were bothering me.
Okay. I'm looking for... We watched Alien, which we talked about a little bit last time.
Mm-hmm.
And
trying to... One of the characters in Time Bandits is from Alien. Napoleon?
Yes, thank you for reminding me. Ian Holm is Napoleon in that, and Ash in Alien. And it's great watching all these old movies and even newer movies. We can make those connections because he is also in the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit films. He is Bilbo Baggins in those. When and if we ever get to those. I'm trying to find some horror movies. Since you're older now, you're about the age when I started watching more intently. Also with the knowledge that you do get spooked by things and it does bother your sleep. I thought The Shining might be okay. I don't really find it scary anymore. I recognize that, especially the twins, the Grady twins. We call them the Grady twins, but they weren't twins.
They don't bother me.
They creeped me out when I was younger.
I kind of loved them.
Yeah. It's partly the lighting and it's partly they have a slightly different look to them. A little bit odd features, but on the whole, and this is one of the criticisms of the film, is that it's really not all that scary, but when you're younger, things hit you in a different way. So since it was the 40th anniversary this past weekend, I asked, you said you were up for it, and we can always turn things off if they're bothering you. We've done that in the past. When we first watched E.T., we had to turn it off. Gremlins, we've had to turn off. We didn't turn this off. We watched it all the way through. The only part that really bothered you was at the end when she's going through the whole hotel looking for Danny.
Yeah, and the freaking dog bear thing. Hated it. Can someone burn it? I don't know why it's freaking weird, but I don't like it.
I think a lot of people will agree with you on that one. And I think my main concern was with the old lady in the tub. That
was lovely.
Which is, look, for anyone who, not that anyone comments on any of my stuff, but if you have a problem with that, there are people let their kids watch this movie when they're 5, 6, and 7 years old. I would never subject a child to even the tamest of horror movies at that age. Each parent is different. I don't think 12 and a half, or you're a little bit older than 12 and a half, is too young for The Shining. If you do, keep it to yourself. That's the only scene really that I was worried about because of the nudity and the horror combination that can leave an impression. Even if you don't recognize that now, it could. I am interested, though, that was the scene that bothered you at the end, because a lot of people have sort of made fun of like the skeletons in that one room. And
that doesn't scare me. Skeletons, they're harmless. They can't do anything. They're just already dead, so.
And it's almost like this is what a haunted house is supposed to look like. It's not really scary, but, well, you want ghosts and spooky things in your haunted house movie? Well, here they are. This isn't the scary part. The fact that this guy's gone insane and wants to murder his family is the scary part.
Yeah.
So what did you think about the acting in the film?
It was good.
How about Pansy, who we get to visit again? Shelley Duvall was in Time Bandits as Pansy and is Wendy in The Shining.
I like her because she is obviously getting a lot of I guess she's getting yelled at a lot, so she cries a lot in the movie, and it's like, yeah, your husband's going insane, you probably would do that.
Well, that's a good point, because that's a lot of people have issues with her in this role because it's very different from the character in the book, and how she is more of a strong female character in the book. And so, there's a debate on whether that was a good choice. And there's also some issue with how the director of the movie treated her during the filming. I like the performance because, yes, she is, I wouldn't call her weak. I would call her...
She hits him with the bat out of fear.
Yeah.
I think...
Right. Well, she's been abused, at least emotionally, for probably the whole time that they've been together.
Yeah.
And that can have a very detrimental effect on a person. So it's no wonder that she is... I don't think she's weak, and I don't think she's timid. I think she is just emotionally exhausted, and I think that comes through in the movie. And she, of course, saves the day. So, like you said, she smashes him over the head with the bat, and then locks him up. Is that what you were going to say?
Yeah, she has the courage to drag this insane man into a little pantry thing.
Yes, thank you. That is such a good point. She handles the situation, and she gets at least Danny out towards the end there, out of the window and gets them out of there at the end. And that's basically the end of the film, where they have escaped and he freezes to death in the maid.
Mm-hmm.
I understand the criticism of that role or maybe her characterization of it, but I don't agree with it necessarily. I can see it, but I think ultimately she is the hero of the film, and despite of all the abuse that she has gone through over the years, comes out on top.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, well, is there anything you wanted to add about any of those three movies or any of the other movies? We did watch Princess Bride again, and you watched it for school.
Yeah, that movie is amazing. I love it.
It's inconceivable how good that movie is.
Inconceivable!
Maybe we'll watch Gremlins next.
Please, I love that movie.
Have we watched it all with her?
We watched it, then stopped it because I was like, eh. But then I remember the
pool scene.
Yeah, that hurt my feelings. But then I came out one day and you were like rewatching it or something, or it was on TV, and I watched like the last few scenes with you, so we could watch that again.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you once again for being here, Cleo. I will see you later in the other part of the house, probably. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Now the time on sprockets when we dance.
Well, once again, I have been a conversational narcissist and talked through most of that, but it's a little bit harder to get your 12 and 3/4 age daughter to open up. So hopefully there was enough of her in that to be enjoyable. I guess that's it for this episode. I went back actually and listened to the first part and did a little bit of editing and noticed that the tone of my voice is considerably different now that I am sitting up in a chair instead of laying on the floor. I don't think it's an Audacity thing, but who knows? Please continue to stay safe and be smart. If your state is opening up, take precautions. Don't be a dumbass. Wear a mask, please. It has no bearing on your masculinity. So get over it. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to Wake Up Heavy if you haven't already done so. The support button is still on SoundCloud. If you feel like pitching me some coins, it'll go towards rentals, equipment, movie purchases, things that I can add to the show and continue to hopefully make it better. I think that'll do it for this episode. God knows what's coming up next. I don't. Whatever it is, it'll just be awesome. All right. Be smart. Stay healthy. Stay safe. And don't forget.
Anything can happen when you wake up heavy.
Now the time on sprockets when we dance.
Strahlen, sie sind nur aus Gas. Sterne verlöschen, als waren sie Stars.